There are an enormous number of diet plans of various types. Some of these were developed fairly recently, and some came from ancient times. The high-protein, low-carb diets are one of the older diets. Welcome to the Straight Share to Health channel, where today we will start discussing one of the more popular high-protein, low-carb diets, the keto diet. I'm only going to discuss some of the information that promoters use to entice people into using this diet. I don't really need to discuss any other aspect of it, as the promoters do a pretty good job of shooting it down all by themselves. This discussion also applies to all low-carb, high-protein diets. Addressing the information used by the promoters will take a fair amount of discussion. Therefore, to keep this video within a reasonable length, I'm going to split it into 5 parts. I would also recommend watching these keto videos in order, as it may be somewhat confusing otherwise. Before we address the keto diet directly, let's discuss some aspects of high-protein diets in general. Your body cannot utilize fats directly as an energy source. It must first convert them into aldehydes and ketones. Ketosis is a physiological state that your body goes into when it is forced to use fat as an energy source. Depending on the composition of your diet, your body may go into ketosis frequently. This is more likely to happen with athletes or people who work very hard. When your body runs out of glucose, it starts into ketosis to provide energy for muscles and other tissues. Most people don't stay in this state very long before they end up eating some carbohydrates, which will cause their body to revert back to a carbohydrate metabolism. In all of the low-carb diets, you do not consume enough carbohydrates to allow your body to return to a carbohydrate metabolism, thereby forcing your body to remain in a ketotic state. I'll have a lot more to say about this as we go through the promoters' information. So, let's get into the keto diet promoters' claims. Quote, "The main benefit of ketosis is that it increases the body's ability to utilize fats for fuel, which gets very lazy on a high carbohydrate diet." Close quote. Your body is designed to use fats as an energy source when there is an inadequate supply of glucose. If it rarely has to utilize this energy pathway, the molecules that it needs to carry out ketosis are at a minimum, as the body does not store things that it does not need. Therefore, as you force it to use this pathway, your body builds up the needed molecules, which increases its ability to utilize fats. This is just something that it does automatically as different energy sources are utilized. If you eat enough sugar that this pathway is rarely utilized, your body won't be very efficient in getting into ketosis. So this is not really a benefit, as your body will adjust its ability to perform ketosis based on your diet. What they want you to believe is that by forcing your body into ketosis, it will make it burn fat for energy, thereby reducing your fat stores. The fact is, unless you eat fewer calories than your body needs for its basic metabolic functions, it will not use your fat stores and you will not lose weight. It will use the fat in your diet before it starts to break down fat stores. Regardless of whatever diet you are on, if you eat fewer calories than your body needs, it will use some of its fat stores to make up the difference. If you eat enough calories, your body doesn't need to touch your fat stores, and in fact will store any excess energy that you eat that is not needed for metabolic processes. Quote, "Ketosis has a protein-sparing effect. Once in ketosis, the body actually prefers ketones to glucose. Since the body has copious quantities of fat from your diet, there is no need for it to utilize protein to generate glucose." Close quote. When your body has insufficient glucose for its energy needs under any circumstances, it starts utilizing its fat stores, or dietary fat, for required energy. The exception is the brain. Although it can utilize ketones for energy, it does not function well on them. For example, diabetics can have low blood sugar for a variety of reasons, but usually because they have given themselves too much insulin. The presence of the insulin keeps driving their blood sugar lower as it causes muscle, fat, and the liver to continue to absorb glucose. When their blood sugar gets too low, they experience a variety of symptoms including disorientation, dizziness, nausea, etc. And if it gets low enough, they will become comatose. What happens to a non-diabetic? When you eat carbohydrates, they cause your blood sugar to increase. Once it reaches a threshold value, the pancreas starts producing insulin. This insulin enables the liver, muscles, and adipose tissue to absorb the excess glucose. As the blood sugar comes down to the threshold level, insulin production ceases to prevent the blood sugar from getting too low. As the blood sugar continues to drop due to consumption by tissues that don't need insulin to absorb glucose, such as nervous tissue, the liver starts releasing its glucose stores. When these stores run out, it starts manufacturing glucose from protein sources such as dietary intake or protein stores, which happen to be your muscles, and continues to do so until glucose intake is adequate for your brain's needs. If someone using a keto diet or any other diet does not have enough protein intake, when their liver runs out of glucose, their body will break down some of its muscles to obtain the required protein to manufacture glucose by a process called gluconeogenesis. If you check your blood sugar while on a keto diet, you'll find that it is in the normal range. Protein sparing only occurs if your body has sufficient protein intake or adequate glucose intake and sufficient liver stores so your liver doesn't have to make glucose. Since the keto diet has an abundance of protein, it doesn't need to use muscle protein to make glucose. Therefore, the muscle-sparing aspect of the keto diet. Your body never prefers ketones to glucose, as it is designed to function more efficiently on glucose. As anyone who is trained intensely enough to burn up the glycogen or glucose stores in their muscles will attest, your energy level goes down considerably when you run out of glucose. You keep training, but your energy, strength, and endurance go down, and recovery times go up when you're using ketones for energy. If your muscles and other tissue that can use ketones run out of their glucose stores, your body will start to use dietary or stored fat to produce ketones to supply the needed energy. Your muscles and other tissues that can utilize ketones for energy cannot use the glucose manufactured by the liver. They can only use glucose if there's insulin present. Since your blood glucose levels are insufficient to trigger insulin production, muscles and these other tissues cannot use the glucose. It's reserved for those tissues that do not require insulin to absorb glucose, such as nervous tissue. Unless you eat fewer protein and fat calories than your body requires for its energy needs, it will not touch your fat stores, as it doesn't need to. It can obtain adequate energy for your metabolism through your dietary intake. Therefore, the only way that you are going to lose weight is to eat fewer calories than your body needs so that it will be forced to use your fat stores to make up the difference. I don't know where they come up with the idea that if you eat lots of fat, your liver doesn't have the need to make glucose from protein. If you never eat any carbohydrates, when your liver runs out of glucose stores, it will have to make glucose and protein in order for your brain to have an adequate supply. It cannot make glucose from fat. The fat will be converted into aldehydes and ketones, which the muscles and other tissues will use. However, your brain must have glucose to function. Therefore, the liver has to make glucose, and it uses protein, not fat, to make it. Don't lose sight of the fact that if you eat in excess of any energy source, for example, carbohydrates, fats, and protein, your body will turn it into fat for energy storage. We'll stop at this point and pick up the discussion in part 2. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. You can also email me at drmeline@ss-health.com. That's drmeline@ss-health.com. See you in the next video.